Hey everyone, Paul ISM, welcome to part 2 of the Tamiya Honda NSX video build. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, make sure you click the little bell notifications, get notified of all our latest videos, click the like button and leave a comment. I do read and reply to all the comments and appreciate everybody that takes the time to leave a comment on the channel. And of course, if you scroll up in the description, there's a link to a big long list of all the items I use in my videos, so if you see anything, you should be able to find it in there. So back for part 2, we are going to get our interior done today. We normally do all the running gear and the chassis, but today I thought we'd mix it up, we'll get the interior done and see what we can make out of what looks to be a pretty decent interior. I've picked my colour already, I'd already done this before even starting the kit really, and yeah, we're going to see what we can do today, see if we make it a bit interesting, and maybe we'll do a bit of flocking as well. Flocking hell. So let's jump straight into the build and get started. Right, here we go. So like I said, we're going to focus on the interior today. We've got various components to look at. Various components to prime, paint, detail. We're going to try some flocking. We're going to use some of the leather effect paints on the seats. First off, we've got variant A because we want the right-hand drive vehicle. So that's all that column there. So pay attention as you go because you're going to call outs for A and B. So we're going to circle each one that calls out for A, to make sure we don't get mixed up. So as you can see, we've got A on the left and A on the right page. So we circle each one. We won't get confused and start messing up parts, because I've done this before and ended up painting a lot of the wrong parts off one. See, nearly circled B. So just do this, a little bit of peace of mind, bit of a reminder as you go through, and just have a look. So we're going to get to this step here, where we got all the bodywork ready to fit in the chassis. We've jumped ahead, we've not done the chassis, we normally do the chassis first, but I thought we'd get the interior out of the way. It's all in a nice little compact tub, and I knew it'd make a quick video. So we'll concentrate on all the running gear, chassis and engine in the next video. So we've got various components to cut off. We've got some chrome pieces. They're going to be left the chrome because it's not too bad at all. These are like accent pieces on the dashboard. And then obviously we've got all our corresponding parts for the left and the right hand dashboard. So quite a bit to clean up and cut off. Standard procedure, we've got the Tamiya side cutters. Cut them off as close to the plastic sprue as we can. And then we use UMP sanders and a buffer to clean it all up. So there we go, there's all our components off now and ready for cleanup. Looking for the sprue locator points, I've got a 400 UMP customizable. One of my favourite tools at the minute for dealing with flat edges. Cut it to a reasonable size and then you've got a nice straight edge, so it won't curve or distort or change the angle of any parts. Find them very, very useful at the minute. And it's a case just going around moving all the sprue points on all these parts, taking your time. Again, time spent here is well spent because you'll get a cleaner finish. If you've got any bigger pieces of plastic, get your snips in again and cut them off as flush as you can without damaging the plastic, and then hit it up with the sander. Now these parts, technically, these parts won't be seen, but it's almost inevitable. If you leave a part, it'll be seen. So get rid of them if you can. It's good practice as well. And yeah, it's all a part of modelling. So whilst we were cutting the parts off for the interior, I started dealing with the wheels, because I've already done the body. I normally do the wheels at the same time, and I didn't get a chance in the last video. Now, I was undecided on colour. I was originally thinking chrome, and then I thought, no, chrome's going to look a bit too bright. And then I had an idea, should we try and carbon it more? Out of curiosity, could I do it? And to see what it would look like. So we're going to spend a couple of minutes here and just give it a quick go at doing it. So the rims are pretty, they're not the most complex of shapes, but there's plenty of angles and shapes to get around. And I'm going to try and do this in one piece. So we've got some of the excellent 12 scale carbon weave decal sheet from Scale Motorsport. We've got UMP decal solutions and a sharp knife, cotton buds, and one of our water brushes as well. So it's been in the water for a couple of minutes. I'm just going to take it off. We cut it to size, so it's just oversized. What we're going to do is just going to place it on, and then we're going to put some of the UMP normal solutions on to begin with. Let it sit for 5 minutes, and then we'll hit it with a stronger and see if we can get it to conform. So I'm just taking the edges off because it'll make it bend around the edges easier and obviously we don't have as much overhang of carbon then as well. It does like to stick to your fingers, take your time. And there we go. So we're going to get some UMP normal right now. We're just going to plonk it on. What we want to do is to start to conform the decal. So when we hit it with a strong one in a minute, we can start pushing it in, because we want to get this in one piece. So we really need to get this into those spokes before we start cutting it or manipulating it with the brush. As you can see, we've got our edges down, which is always a good start. Very good high quality decals. Really can take a lot of abuse. It's surprising sometimes just how much abuse it can take. It's a little bit more than normal. I'm just going to let that sit there for a minute. Just slowly soften it. As you see, I'm just starting to push it in. No real pressure just yet. So we'll leave that for 5 minutes. Then we'll hit it with some of the strong and let it sit for a minute. And then we'll come back now with our knife. And as you see, it's already started to conform. The strong has really started to conform the decal. What we're doing is just putting a little nick right in the center of those spokes. What that'll allow then is the carbon to bend down into the spokes and around the edge of the wheel. And hopefully we'll get it to conform. Now, it did take a bit of time to do. I've obviously sped it up here. There's time in between letting the decal solution sit and wait and what have you. But it was actually pretty simple to do. It just takes a bit of patience, really, that's it. When you push one side down, the next one up is going to go with it. So it's going to pull it. So don't go too much at once, just enough to start pushing it down. Then let it back up, and then if you keep loading the solutions on a little bit at a time, it'll eventually start to conform, and you can start to really give it a good push down with the brush. As you can see there, after 5 minutes of just gentle manipulation, now using the stiffer end of the brush to push it down into the outside edge of the rim. So if I did decide to do all four, it'd take quite a while. It was a bit tedious to do. I was really undecided. I think if I was to do it, I'd go with the 24 scale carbon, a little bit less in your face of a weave. This was just a test, really. Can I do it was the main function of this, because I didn't think I'd be able to, but I actually managed it in the end. I had one little bit of decal tear, which is normally going to happen anyway. And I think second time round, taking a little bit longer, knowing where the stress points are, and using a smaller scale piece of carbon, I could have got it to look a lot better. But there we go. So we hit that with a strong again. We pushed all the corners in and all the recesses we got around the spokes. And as you can see, for the majority of it, it is there. But I decided, looking at it, I didn't particularly like it. So we just peeled it back off, back to bare plastic, and we're going to prime and paint. I am still not 100% sure what we're going to do. We're going to see what happens with that one. I have sprayed them. I'm not going to ruin it now, because I'll show it in the next video. But we're going to prime them in UMP grey just for now. So we took all the decal film off, gave it a good clean up. I'm just going to put a few coats of grey UMP around this, as usual, with a bit of a dust coat to begin with. But on parts like this, you've got plenty of angles to get, so it's very easy to flood. Just put a bit on, put it down, leave it be, come back in 5 minutes, and build up as we go. So using grey, because the majority of these parts are going to be painted black, and whilst black covers better over black primer, it's hard to see sometimes where you've actually sprayed, and it can give a little bit of a patchy appearance. So if I can use the grey, I will. And on the white, again, no bother at all. Put a mist coat down. Once you use this more and more, you can see how far you can push it. It is an acrylic primer. It's polyurethane based. It does like a mist coat to begin with, and then build up as you go. As you can see here, starting to come in a little bit heavier now. On the interior tour, we've got a lot of angles to get, to make sure we get them all, and do a bit of the outside as well, especially that rear panel, because I think that is visible through the rear screen. So each piece gets about 2 or 3 light coats, getting wetter as we go. Seats, pretty nice seats in these as well. Again, the good ones are painted up. No backs to them, but somebody did query the other day in a picture, but you're not going to be able to see this through the back, so there's no point in really having a back, and that's obviously what Tamiya decided with the kit. But again, we're not rushing it here. We don't want any runs or any fisheyes or anything to appear because we're rushing it. Just take our time. We got our nice 3 even coats all over it. Put it to one side to dry overnight, and we can come back the next day and spray our colour on. So, a little refill of primer, and as you can see, that's the 3rd coat done on near enough everything now. Just a few finishing touches. Nice and quick and easy. We're through the UMP apex to 0.35. We're at about 25 psi. It's completely unthinned, out the bottle. Give it a really good shake. It does need a really good shake, and I will put some shaker balls in the bottle as well, just to ensure you get it fully mixed. Right, so the primer's dried overnight. We're back the next day. We've got a few parts that we're going to paint up in leather colour. Now, after painting this, I actually realised I painted it the wrong way. What we should have done was painted the black first, masked that off, and then painted the tan colour. But I won't realise until I come to mask it that this other way would have been so much easier to mask. And was definitely the way to go. So we've got 0 paint, saddle tan. We're very careful shaking these bottles. For some unknown reason, we shake them too hard they break, which is just crazy, but anyway. So best thing to do is, rather than risk the ball, put your paint stirrer in, don't switch it on, just give it a real good stir, letting the paddle hit the bottom. Once you've got most of it unsettled, angle the bottle down so the BB stays at the bottom, and just stay away from it with the paint mixer, and give it a whiz round to mix all the pigments up, and give it a real good mix together. So, we've got our apex, we've got the 0.35 needle set, we're at about 18 psi, and a few people have asked me why I use 18 psi. It's just a clearly defined pot mark I can see on my compressor gauge from where I sit. So I would probably pick 15 as my ideal point, but 18 is a lot easier to find because of the marks on the compressor gauge. So yeah, that's why I'm very specific over 18 psi. No other reason other than it's visually easier for me to see. So one important thing here I forgot, put your respirator on. Even though I've got a really good spray booth, these are lacquer paints. So I'm just putting my 3M respirator on. Put my glasses back on. I find if I spray these lacquers, they give me horrendous headaches if I'm not careful. The booth does remove all the smell, but if I get a bit of blowback from the model, so if I'm painting this and a bit comes back at me, which it will do, breathing that in over a prolonged period, yeah, it doesn't make me feel great at all. So I like to wear the mask as and when I can. What we're going to do here is give it a light overall coat. Not worrying about getting huge coverage everywhere, but just to get a nice little base colour down. You've got to be careful, these paints, they're very hot. If you're not careful, they will absolutely destroy the plastic. It'll eat right through any paint and just destroy it. So there we go. It's a beautiful colour. I think I used this on, I think it was my Aston Martin. I forget now. I've never used it on a car before. It's a beautiful colour. I've always loved tan leather. Never owned a car with tan leather though. Would absolutely love one though. So maybe one day we'll see. So yeah, when I was considering leather colours, I didn't know if this would go with red. I was on the fence about doing it black and red, and then I was thinking cream, and then it was Tim, my buddy Tim. Probably won't watch this because he doesn't watch my videos. It's a running joke with us like this. So well, Ferrari does it all the time with their cars in red with tan leather, and it goes with them. I thought, you know what, he's right. So yeah, we decided on the tan against black with the chrome details, and this is where we're at now. So we've probably got about 4 really light coats on this. There's hardly any paint going down at all. It probably looks like there's a lot. There's not. If you hose this stuff on, it will just absolutely eat through any paint and just craze the plastic. So you've got to be really careful. You know what you're doing. It's pretty good paint. It's not the best quality, but it works okay. It's pretty easy to get a hold of, and the colour range isn't too bad either. So there we go, that's all the leather work done. Now we've got Tamiya LP5 semi-gloss black. It's pre-thinned in our bottle there, just to the right, about 70-30 Tamiya lacquer thinner with retarder to paint. So that's about 10 ml of paint to about 13 millilitres of thinner. I keep that bottle pre-mixed because I use so much of this stuff. I can go through that bottle in a model quite easily, especially on cars, because there's a lot of these semi-gloss black parts. You can really push this stuff. It doesn't mind going on wet at all. I'm not saying hose it on, but you can put it on a lot wetter than you can the likes of Zero or Splash and what have you. So yeah, you can load the paint up a bit quicker, and it's probably the best semi-gloss black finish I've seen. It's a beautiful, beautiful finish, and it's literally ideal for the cars and bikes. So we give everything a couple of coats, going through the apex, 18 psi, 0.35 needle. I have separate airbrushes for lacquer, primer, clear coats, metallics, and then 2mm for the lacquers, to save paint contamination, because lacquers don't like water-based paint and vice versa, and you can get issues with airbrushes blocking. So I had to keep them separate and have an airbrush for each use. It's not the easiest or cheapest way of doing it, but it's by far the easiest way to get the quickest and best results out of your airbrushing. So, like I said, we're going to flock the carpet on the interior tub. So spray it black, wherever colour your carpet's going to be, so that when you put your flocking down, you don't see any patches of different coloured paint through it. So we've got some Revel Gloss Black Enamel paint. I keep meaning to get the matte black and keep totally forgetting, but I think the gloss dries a bit tackier anyway, so it's probably better for this effect. You can see our beautifully painted tan leather seats at the top. They're going to contrast really well with the black interior. What we're going to do, we're going to use a nice wide Tamiya HF brush, and we're going to brush paint it everywhere where we want the flocking to stick. Now, flocking is not stereotypically, but usually an actual flocking fabric material. It goes everywhere, and every time I've used it, I found that my clear coats for weeks on end. I decided against using it. So reading online, a lot of people are using embossing powder, which is what we've got there in the jar top right. We've used it before, it works really well. So all we need to do is brush down the enamel paint in a generous amount without going crazy, everywhere we want the paint to flocking to stick. Some careful brushwork will keep it away from any areas you don't. So basically, we're doing all the footwells around the seats, not where the seats go, because they will hinder sticking them down. And then we're going to do all that panel behind the seats as well, and then up onto the shelf at the back. But there is a screen there, so we can't completely cover it, but we're going to cover most of it up. Enamel paints do actually absolutely reek, and they do make a mess, so I've got a bit of paper down, as you can see. If you're in doubt at all, do it in your spray booth or put your respirator on, but we do need to put it on quite generously, because you want to get this down in one shot if you can. It looks a lot better if it's all done in one go. Like I say, it's just a case of going everywhere you want it to go, because everywhere you put that paint is where the flocking will stick. It's a case of pouring it in, moving it around so it sticks, tapping out the excess, and repeat until you're happy that it's done. So this is why we need the thickness of paint, so it grabs the flocking. Once you're happy with it, have a good look around, make sure you haven't missed anywhere, or it's not quite thick enough, or it's a bit too thick in areas. Spread it around a bit. It's enamel paint, it takes an age to dry. It does go nice and tacky, which is the ideal reason for using a medium like this. Don't drop it, especially back into the paint. Clumsy oaf. Like I say, just get it all even all over. Thick enough to grab wherever you pour into it without running or taking forever to dry. Once you're happy, grab your medium, be it flocking powder or embossing powder, whatever you're using, and tap it in. Now, it doesn't matter how much you put down, because wherever it doesn't stick will come back out. And we use the paper to put it back into the jar, any excess that isn't used. Like I say, the idea is you want to get it all onto that enamel paint to stick. Probably take you a couple of goes, so put it on everywhere you can see. Tap it back out and then repeat it again and get any last stragglers that haven't quite stuck. You can see we're putting it in, tipping it away, and then pouring it back on to any areas we've missed. So if there's any areas you're not sure of, just tap it down with your finger. It's a very, very fine powder, but it's nowhere near as messy as the actual flocking powder, unless you get it all over your finger like I just have. And there we go. We give it a good tap. You can see exactly where you'll see the paint coming through still if you've not quite got enough in there. So a few of you asked to see this. I'm pretty sure I showed it in the Chevelle video, but here it is again. It's a good effect. I much prefer the embossing powder. It's available in all different colours as well. So you could do, different colour carpets or mats. And I think I'm going to add to the range of what I have. Like I had a few greys, reds, colours like that. So make it a bit more interesting. But there we go. That's looking good. We've got a few areas there at the front that are going to need a bit more. So we'll just keep going around until we're happy that it's full. Now sadly, although this isn't going to be visible because the seat's going to hide it, the dashboard will hide it, but what you can see is worth the effort. It does look good when you look through the vehicle. And it's a good technique to learn. I would definitely recommend the embossing powder over the actual flocker material. It's so much less mess. As you can see, I just rub it off my hands. It goes onto the paper. And once we're happy we're done, if we fold the paper up, put a little crease in it so we've got a point. And then tip it back into the pot. We've used hardly any at all, and this will last a hell of a long time. Now, I explained the masking. Now, I should have painted these centres black, airbrushed them, then masked the centres, and then sprayed the brown, because when I come to mask them now, to spray the black, they were a nightmare. They were having none of it at all. It would have taken me hours to do, so I resorted to plan B, which was the brush paint. I enjoy brush painting. Don't do it nearly as much as I should or like to. It's quite therapeutic. So we've got some Vallejo model colour black. We've had a couple of drops of water to thin it. We've got the thinner of the Tamiya HF flat brushes. And we're just very carefully following those seam or panel lines on the seat, trying to keep it as neat as we possibly can. The brush is loaded up, but not with a huge amount of paint, just so we don't have to keep going back over it. And this is just going to take some very, very careful painting. Taking our time. So the key to this is don't go back over the paint, or if you have to, go over it as little as possible. I'm probably the worst person because I'll go back over it again and again and again, but if it's still wet, you can still manipulate it. What we want to do is to dry nice and even. So the ideal way really will be to put thinner coats down. A little bit of paint at the front there, and just wet our finger to begin with to wipe it off. And then we'll start with the top piece. So considering a freehand of this, it didn't turn out too bad at all. And again, the black on tan is a nice accent to the seats as well. So there's a few other ways you could do this. If you masked it the proper way I was going to, I think you get a much cleaner finish because you can use the panel lines of the seats to cut your tape, and that way it makes life so much easier rather than do it the opposite way. But hey, in hindsight, it's easy enough to say. So with some very careful brush painting, we still get a perfectly adequate job. Model colours are very high quality water-based paints. So you can see we'll load the brush up, wipe off the excess, and then start on the top piece. As you can see, I'll let the brush fan out and use that to follow the line round of the seat. Like I say, as long as we take our time, we'll get a perfectly acceptable finish. Okay, door cards the same as well. Literally want to leave where my thumb is now on that elbow rest door card part. Tan, the rest of it is going black. So again, in with the flat brush. Nice careful bit of painting. So what we do is we put the brush down so it fans out and gets its flat edge, and then we put that up to the edge where we're going and just very carefully pull it back. Looks very wet at the minute, but it does dry pretty matte. It is the satin / matte paint. I'm just looking at my instructions thinking, where do I need to go? It's like, okay then. So yeah, we're going to do all the tops, all the edges, and underneath as well. So this was starting to get a bit tricky now, trying to hold it. But flat brush, definitely the way to go. Makes life a lot easier. And you get a much better finish. Don't forget the tops or any other angles or sides that you haven't got. And there we go. Steering wheel. We've got some silver accents on the steering wheel, which sadly do need brush painting. So we've got a Winsor & Newton miniature. I think it's like a 0 brush. Very, very, very fine. Tamiya also does one too in the HF range, but I didn't have one on hand. They've all been commandeered as weathering brushes, so I need to get another pack for use. The Tamiya HF pointed brush is super fine. Very, very nice. Would have been ideal for this, but this brush is more than adequate. Very high quality brush. We've just some nice, careful, steady hand painting to do to get the nice chrome trim on the steering wheel. Again, I don't do a huge amount of brush paint, but there's something very therapeutic about doing it. It's really going back to basic modelling skills. It's a good skill to have and not forget. Luckily on the steering wheel there are some lines you can follow. So it does just take a bit of careful precision. An optivisor magnifier is quite a handy piece here as well. Follow your instructions, take your time, and it'll turn out just right. Quite happy with that. It's not too bad at all because it's brush painted. Like I say, luckily there are marks on the steering wheel to follow. As you can see, turn at an angle for your advantage. It is tricky, and it would have been nice to get a chrome part that could have gone on this. But it's 5 minutes, not even that, of a bit of hand painting, and job done. Get the paddle shifters on the back. And there we go. Happy with that. Let that sit off and dry for a bit. Now, we've got some of our Loctite Precision pen. Perfect pen, whatever the hell it's called. I always call it the wrong name. And we're going to start assembling all the components. These are dried overnight. We've detail painted up a few of the components in a model colour black by brush, like on the centre console at the top you can see. And anything else that needs detail painting really. I'm just going to start to assemble some of the dashboard. So we've got enough upper and lower part of the dashboard with this chrome piece in between, which adds a really nice piece of trim on the dash, as you can see. Not a lot of it showing, but enough to be really interesting. And it's a decent chrome as well, not too in your face. Looks really good. And then we've got our steering column. So again, just test fit first. And then put it in place. Little dab of CA glue in the hole. Make sure it's positioned correct. Make sure your thing isn't stuck like mine was. And then we've got our decals, several decals to apply. So usual standard practice. In the water, some UMP decal solutions. We just use strong on this. Get them lined up, hit them with solutions, let the solution do the job, and Bob's your uncle. Nice bit of detail. Decent decals as well. I said this in the review. Tamiya's own in-house decals have improved massively over the years. They're still not the best, but they're better than, way better than they used to be, which is nice to see. But there's a few to put on the dash, a couple on the door cards, but nice and simple and pretty easy to do. Okay, so line them up. There we go, the Honda logo for the steering wheel. And that's the dashboard decaled up. Once we're happy they're all in the right position, we'll get rid of the excess moisture, water behind them, hit them with the UMP decal solution, and let that do its job, and set them in place. So there we go. So I think this is UMP normal. I can't see the bottle and I completely forgot what it was. We got rid of all the moisture behind with cotton buds as we always do, and we're just hitting it with the decal solution and letting it do its job, making sure it's all conformed and snugged right down on the surface. Just take your time going around. If you're not confident enough, once you put the solution on, leave them alone, but I know how far I can push this stuff and don't usually have a problem at all. A couple of speaker grills on the door cards. Same way of doing it. So we put the decal on, remove the excess moisture, hit them with the decal solution, and let that do its job, and that's it, job done. Check on these, they look good. So solution's dealt with, so they can go away. Now we've got some Tamiya panel liner in black. We're going to add some detail to all the heater grills, any recessed areas on the wheel, steering wheel, dashboard, anywhere we can add it to add a bit of depth and interest. So there's not a huge amount of places to put it. You don't want to let it flood on, just enough to load up the panel lines. And it will certainly add a bit of detail to that chrome work. And again, as always, let it dry for a good half hour, 40 minutes, and then wipe off the excess to leave it in all those recessed or raised areas. So the key is dip the brush in, wipe off the excess, and then apply. Don't put it on with a big, huge glob of it because it'll end up everywhere. It's enamel based, so it's pretty safe over most paints. I've not had an issue with it to this day, and I've been using it for years. But as always, take your time. Some chrome parts on the doors, a little dab of CA glue in there, pop them in place. Again, a nice touch being chrome. So there's one. We'll pop the other one on as well. And we've got our accelerator and brake pedal. Our footrest is already in there. Then our nicely flocked carpet, which has dried really well. Looks pretty good. Then a good few dabs of CA glue around where the seats are going to sit. The seats are handed. One has a little key lug on it, so the right seat there is handed. So make sure you get the right side. Have a look, you can tell which one's which. Pop it in, make sure it's pushed right back against the locator points. Push it down for a second, let's say go grab it. Same on the other side. Make sure it's in place. Once you're happy with it, they're done. Center console, couple of dabs of glue underneath. Make sure it's all lined up correctly. And then our dashboard. So this locates on the center console just here. So a few dabs of CA glue all around the edges. Carefully push it into position. Hold it for a sec, give it a push down with a clean cocktail stick, just to make sure it's all fully home, and there we go. Door cards next. Again, we run a generous supply of the Perfect pen. I can't remember if it's Perfect or Precision, I call it the wrong name every single time. It's linked in the description, maybe I should go look or just look at the bottle. I think it is Perfect pen. It's a very good little applicator, and it's nice thick gel as well, so it's quite handy for doing bits like this. Do the door card on, and there we go. That is looking good. Very happy with that. There's a couple of chrome parts to go in the middle, so getting the right way around is a little bit tricky, as you can see. Third time's a charm. Get it in place, push it down, leave it be. Again, we can get this part on a little wash. And while we're at it, we'll give the seats one as well. There's plenty of seams and panel lines on the seats, so we might as well do it to accentuate the colour a little bit and get a nice demarcation between that hand-painted black and tan colour. So just let the capillary action of the wash just carry its way around, so just touch it to where you want it. Let it sit, and then you can remove the excess once it's dry. So we're going all around the seats. Anything that has a recessed panel line or a raised area will get hit with the wash. Like I say, once it's dry, we'll come in with a cotton bud, wipe off the excess, and we'll be left with, hopefully, a nice looking interior. So if you haven't got the panel liners, they are a bit difficult to get in the UK. They're not officially imported. You can make an all wash, like I showed in the Challenger video, a little pea-size dot of oil wash in a Tamiya empty bottle, some mineral spirits, and that'll give you an adequate wash as well. I just like these enamels because they dry really quick from Tamiya. Once we're dry or near enough dry, we come with our cotton bud. We've got some sand soda from Winsor Newton, odorless mineral spirits. I'm just going to take off any excess. And I always find with this, let it dry and then come back, as you'll always find a bit that's either smudged, you haven't noticed, or a bit you've missed. And I did. I'm taking the pictures of this for Facebook. I noticed where I've missed. So we'll come back when we put it in the car and we'll get rid of any excess. We're happy with this. Turned out well. Love the tan colour. The flocking looks good. It turned out pretty nice. The hand-painted seats don't look too bad. You can see the flocking there on the carpet. Dashboard looks good. The decals have all gone down well. So very, very happy with that. Not too bad at all. Should hopefully give us a nice contrast between the tan, the black, the chrome, and then onto the red of the bodywork. Which this has been drying now for, about a week now, is it? And beautiful. Dried really nice and clear. We've got a few dust spots to get out, but nothing really that major. But she's dried nice and glossy and looks really, really good. So this will be fully cured when we come back. But part 3, we'll come back and we'll crack on with that running gear, get it all primed, painted, detail painted and assembled. And then we're on the home stretch for part 4, where we'll deal with all the bodywork, the glasswork and final assembly. Into its home, where it'll live for the next few days, and we're done.
There we are then. So it came out quite well, quite happy with that. Flocking turned out well. Seat colour, very happy about it, exact colour I wanted. And it looks pretty decent out of the box. Not a bad interior at all. Got a few little bits of detail paint still. Couldn't quite do them on the day of the video in because I need to let all the paint dry and glue and what have you. And a few more spots of wash to remove as well. Again, I was taking it off pretty fresh, and it was kind of moving it around in places. So yes, we've got a few more spots of that to remove, and yeah, that's it, pretty much done. So part 3 next, so we're going to deal with all the engine, the running gear, chassis, and get all that assembled, get the interior in. There's quite a lot of bits to do for this. And then we've got part 4, there'll be 4 parts for this, where we're going to finish it all off. So we get it all assembled, we get all the bodywork polished, the glasswork done, all the lights, etc, etc. And we'll get this build done and dusted. And then we're on to the next one, which I've started filming. which is the new Tamiya Honda Fireblade, the 1000 RRR. I put a picture up yesterday, and there's a video review of it on the channel as well. You can go back and look at it. So I've already started filming that. The bodywork's all there. It's all together. Just needs sanding, and then it's ready for primer, and we can move on with the build and get cracking on that. So looking forward to that one. And we will get back to the 213RC MotoGP bike. I'm going to talk about that in the bench update. I'm going to do maybe tomorrow. About where we're going to go with that. So we will get back to that. I just want to do the Fireblade. It's a good looking bike. It's a brand new kit, and I'm quite eager to crack on with it. So there we go. As always, let me know what you think in the comments down below. I do read, reply, and appreciate everybody that leaves a comment. Give the video a thumbs up or thumbs down. Make sure you sub to the channel, click the bell notification, and check out International Scale Model Facebook and forum, umpretail.com, where you can get most of the products I use in these videos, and nearly everything you'll see is linked in the description of this video. Click on it. It takes you to a big long list over on the forum where everything's linked, so you can go over there. Check out my Paul ISM Facebook page for my personal modern work, the Live at the Bench page, and the Off Air Hangout group. And there we go. So I will catch you all next time. Take care, everybody. Bye bye.